Presiden Amerika Serikat Joe Biden meluangkan waktu sejenak di tengah pemaparan proposal infrastrukturnya untuk membeli es krim di Ohio. Setelah berpidato di kampus Cuyahoga Community di Cleveland, Biden berhenti di kedai es krim Honey Hut. Biden memesan es krim chocolate chip untuk dirinya dan memberikan es krim untuk pendukungnya yang berada di dekatnya. Biden juga sempat berbincang dengan pendukungnya tersebut untuk menanyai tentang kurangnya dukungan dari Partai Republik dalam penyelidikan kerusuhan Capitol. Sambil menyantap es krim, Biden menjawab sejumlah pertanyaan dari para pendukung di sekitar kedai es krim tersebut. Setelah itu, Biden pun kembali ke mobil sambil menikmati es krimnya. Pemirsa, informasi tersebut menjadi penutup Metro Malam pada hari ini. Saya Syazawi Sastro bersama teman-teman yang bertugas mengucapkan terima kasih atas perhatian Anda dan sampai jumpa.
Metro TV.
Kenapa sih kita harus berinvestasi di PIK 2? Ada 3 alasan utama. Yang pertama, lokasi PIK 2. Alasan kedua, setiap orang yang membeli PIK 2 dianggap sebagai pemegang saham. Membeli produk PIK 2 memang selalu untung karena harga perdana PIK 2 50% di bawah harga market. Alasan yang ketiga, fasilitas, di mana fasilitas yang tersedia di PIK 2 jauh lebih banyak dari real estate manapun juga. Miliki hunian 4,5 kali 10 meter 2 lantai dengan 2 kamar tidur. Promo spesial rumah milenial. Dapatkan produk milenial dengan cicilan DP 5 juta rupiah per bulan. Anda sudah dapat memiliki rumah 2 lantai di PIK 2. Unit terbatas. Free Smart Home selama Mei 2021. Miliki sekarang. Promo ini sangat terbatas yang dapat dihentikan sewaktu-waktu. Hubungi 021 588 8000.
Menuju rehat malam bersama program-program berita Metro TV. Rangkuman berita pilihan hari ini di dalam negeri dan mancanegara.
Saya Iqbal Himawan akan menemani Anda dalam program Top News.
Laporan perkembangan terkini serta dari dunia olahraga.
Jumpa lagi di Metro Sport.
Selamat malam pemirsa Metro Malam kembali hadir menjumpai.
Kami dampingi Anda menutup hari, memastikan malam Anda terisi dengan informasi yang baik dan terkonfirmasi. Metro TV, knowledge to elevate. World News, Senin hingga Jumat live jam 11:30 malam.
A wildfire has destroyed several homes and forced evacuations in the small central Arizona mining community of Baghdad. Arizona forestry officials say the fire is fueled by dry grass and brush. ABC 15 reported that their helicopter crew counted at least 15 homes that were on fire or heavily damaged. The Baghdad Fire Department said the entire town was evacuated. Hello, you are watching World News on Metro Globe Network with me, Sarah Wayne. And here are our top stories for tonight. Bosnian police on Friday rounded up migrants near the border with neighboring Croatia and moved them to migrant centers in Bosnia on buses. Farmers on vast tracts of land in Australia's New South Wales are being threatened by a mouse plague that the state government described as absolutely unprecedented. Protesters and activists are calling for authorities to fire and prosecute Louisiana State Police troopers involved in the 2019 arrest of Ronald Green, a black man who died in police custody. Members of the National Urban League, NAACP, and other civil rights advocates issued the call during an online news conference Thursday that was attended by Green's mother, Mona Hardin. Hardin joined protesters on Thursday afternoon for a rally at the state capitol in Baton Rouge, where calls to discipline troopers involved in Green's deadly arrest were echoed. The group marched to the residence of Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards, demanding action from the state's top Democrat. Recently released video shows that troopers stunned, beat, and choked Green following a car chase in May 2019. The case is under investigation by state and federal authorities.
Say his name! Ronald Green! Say his name! Ronald Green! No justice!
Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko said on Friday the situation with Russia today is almost absurd during a meeting with heads of Commonwealth of Independent States. The comments came after Russian authorities refused to allow two EU-based carriers to change their routes to Moscow so they could skirt Belarusian airspace. The Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin just sat listening. Belarus's authoritarian leader met top Russian officials on Friday to seek assistance amid a bruising showdown with the European Union over the diversion of a flight to arrest a dissident journalist. Lukashenko said he hopes to reach an agreement with Russia's President Vladimir Putin on restoring the air link between Russia and Belarus that has been suspended because of the coronavirus pandemic. Lukashenko is set to meet with Putin at his Black Sea residence in Sochi for talks on closer economic ties, according to the Kremlin. More than 100 people are missing and feared dead after a boat with more than 165 passengers, including women and children, broke up and sank in Nigeria's northern Kebbi state. 22 people have been rescued and 5 bodies recovered, including a baby less than a year old. 11 rescue boats and divers were involved in the search for about 138 missing passengers as anxiety grew among relatives of those missing. It was unclear what caused the boat to break up as it was traveling on the Niger River from Nigeria's Niger state to the town of Wara in Kebbi state. Meanwhile, media tycoon Jimmy Lai faces sentencing on Thursday over his participation in Hong Kong's pro-democracy protests in 2019. Lai, who founded the Apple Daily newspaper, faced 3 charges over his involvement in the demonstrations. Thursday's sentencing was in relation to his alleged role in an unauthorized assembly in October 2019. It came as Hong Kong's legislature passed a bill amending electoral laws that drastically reduces the public's ability to vote and increases the number of pro-Beijing lawmakers making decisions for the city. The protests in 2019 were driven by anger over a now withdrawn extradition bill that would have allowed people in Hong Kong to be extradited to mainland China for trial. A new national security law imposed by China is now widely seen as aimed at tightening control over Hong Kong. Bosnian police on Friday rounded up migrants near the border with neighboring Croatia and moved them to migrant centers in Bosnia on buses. The migrants, mostly from Afghanistan and Pakistan, have been sleeping rough by Bosnia's border with Croatia, waiting for a chance to move on towards Western Europe. There are thousands of migrants in Bosnia, mostly in official camps, but many who have fled war and poverty in their countries in the Middle East Africa or Asia have occupied abandoned houses or erected small tents near the border with Croatia while making attempts to cross over. Croatia is a European Union nation from where migrants hope to move further towards wealthier EU countries. Croatian police have been guarding the border heavily, pushing back people trying to cross illegally and facing allegations of violence and abuse against migrants, which they have denied. Syrian President Bashar Assad was re-elected in a landslide, officials said on Thursday, ushering in a fourth 7-year term in the war-torn country following an election described as illegitimate and a sham by the West and his opposition. Assad's win was not in doubt in an election where officials said 18 million were eligible to vote. But in the country ravaged by the 10-year-old conflict, areas controlled by rebels or Kurdish-led troops did not hold the vote. At least 8 million, mostly displaced, live in those areas in northwest and northeast Syria. Over 5 million refugees, mostly living in neighboring countries, have largely refrained from casting their ballots. U.S. and European officials have also questioned the legitimacy of the election, saying it violates UN resolutions in place to resolve the conflict, lacks any international monitoring, and is unrepresentative of all Syrians. Syria's parliament speaker Hamoud Sabah announced the final results from Wednesday's vote, saying Assad garnered 95.1% of the votes. Stay with us on World News. We'll be right back after the break. We'll bring you more information, including how U.S. President Joe Biden took some time out from touting his infrastructure proposal for some ice cream in Ohio. Coming right up.
Penyakit diabetes biasanya diawali dengan gejala-gejala yang khas, tapi ada juga yang tanpa gejala.
Saya Haris Fadilah, di usia 60 tahun. Di tahun 2002 saya tidak merasakan keluhan apapun, tetapi dokter mencurigai ada penyumbatan di jantung saya. Ada sumbatan 85% dan pasang ring di jantung saya.
Lalu apa yang dialami oleh Bapak Haris hingga jantungnya tersumbat 85% dan dipasangi ring? Go Healthy, Sabtu 29 Mei jam 6:30 pagi.
Selain olahraga ya, jangan lupa nutrisi. Ya, Mbak, ya, nutrisi kita harus pastikan cukup protein, kemudian linoleat ya, itu juga penting buat lansia terutama.
Metro Eye Care, sehat dan produktif di usia senja, Minggu 30 Mei jam 10 pagi.
Aktif sepanjang hari, aku minum Entrasol. Ekstrak buah zaitunnya bantu tangkal radikal bebas.
Tinggi proteinnya bantu jaga massa otot saya.
Mereka minum Entrasol. Bagaimana dengan Anda? Entrasol.
Pemirsa, Metro TV menyelenggarakan pelatihan jurnalistik untuk tetaplah bersama kami di Breaking News Metro TV.
Dengarkan Metro TV di radio, more than just news. Streaming sekarang di metrotvnews.com dan medcom.id. Metro TV hadir di mana peristiwa terjadi. Bekerja dengan identitas yang jelas dan mampu beradaptasi dengan teknologi terbaru, agar Anda bisa mendapatkan informasi dengan segera. Jurnalis Metro TV berintegritas dan tidak menerima imbalan dalam bentuk apapun. Metro TV, knowledge to elevate. Saksikan live streaming Metro TV dan dapatkan informasi secara lengkap dengan video berkualitas high definition di kanal metrotvnews.com dan medcom.id. Metro Pagi Prime Time, setiap hari live jam 4:30 pagi.
Welcome back on World News. Bodyguards are part of the routine preparation for a campaign stop for Guillermo Valencia, a mayor candidate in Morelia, the capital of the troubled Mexican state of Michoacan. However, only a driver accompanies Valencia in his own armed SUV, while his bodyguards ride in cars ahead and behind the candidate mayor. Other campaign aides have been scared to ride with him since a May attack that wounded a bodyguard, his private secretary, and left his previous campaign vehicle riddled with bullets. Both members of Valencia's team survived. Officials have made no arrests, and experts say drug cartels in Mexico often attack innocent candidates to force them out of races and leave the way clear for cartel favorites. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has started a program to protect candidates, acknowledging that the violence is alarming. The government has assigned armed bodyguards to some candidates, like Valencia. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge attended a beating retreat ceremony in Edinburgh on Thursday, on the last day of their tour to Scotland. A beating retreat is a historic military ceremony. The mass pipes and drums of the combined cadet force in Scotland, joined by local school dancers who took part in a traditional jig, performed for the royals at the Palace of Holyrood House. Members of local charities and schools were also invited. Myla Snedden, a 5-year-old leukemia patient whom the Duchess has forged a relationship with through her Hold Still photo project, was also a guest at the event along with her family. The Duke and Duchess spoke to some of the cadets and guests after the event. President Joe Biden took some time out from touting his infrastructure proposal for some ice cream in Ohio. After speaking at Cuyahoga Community College in Cleveland, Biden stopped at the Honey Hut ice cream stand. The president ordered chocolate chip ice cream cone for himself and a honey pecan for a supporter nearby. While talking with supporters, Biden was asked about the lack of support for Republicans for a January 6th commission to investigate the Capitol riot. Senate Republicans on Thursday were ready to deploy the filibuster to block the commission, shattering chances for a bipartisan probe of the deadly assault. Although they live in dire conditions, Ethiopian refugees are finding time to stay stylish. Ethiopian refugee Beit Gabriel is braiding the hair of a girl to give her a stylish Tigray hairdo. Inside her small tent in Umrakuba refugee camp, Gabriel braids other refugees' hair to make a living. Gabriel lost her family in the conflict back home that has sparked allegations of ethnic cleansing and fears of famine. The war has forced the refugees to leave everything behind. Most of them came with no money, clothes, or personal belongings. No one knows how many thousands of civilians or combatants have been killed since months of political tensions between Ethiopian President Abiy Ahmed's government and the Tigray leaders who have once dominated Ethiopia's government exploded in November into war. The region remains largely cut off from the world, with a few journalists allowed in. For some Ethiopian refugees, a hairstyle from back home helps them feel connected to their country. People can enjoy food and drinks as well as classic lawn games while maintaining coronavirus guidelines. With the virus situation stabilizing in Hong Kong and vaccines gradually reaching more of the population, Hong Kongers are seeking to get out of their homes for summer activities. Overlooking the skyline of Hong Kong, this space consists of individual pods and encircled space for guests to meet with their friends in a group of 4. Each pod is 1.5 meters away from each other, which is a COVID-19 requirement by the Hong Kong government for any public outdoor activities. Classic lawn games such as croquet, cornhole were installed in individual areas in between the pods where guests can book the space to play the game with their friends. The lawn club will open their doors until July. Farmers on vast tracts of land in Australia's New South Wales are being threatened by a mouse plague that the state government describes as absolutely unprecedented. Just how many millions of rodents have infested the agricultural plains across the state is guesswork. At night, the floors of sheds vanish beneath carpets of scampering mice. Ceilings come alive with the sounds of scratching. One family blamed mice chewing electrical wires for their house burning down. The risk is that the mice will maintain their numbers through the southern hemisphere winter and devour the wheat, barley, and canola before it can be harvested. Professor Stephen Hawking's entire office and archives have been acquired for the British nation. His first book, A Brief History of Time, sold 10 million copies. He was honored by world leaders, appeared in several TV cameos, and a film about his early life, starring Hollywood star Eddie Redmayne, was released in 2014. Hawking's achievements are all the more remarkable, given the extreme physical restrictions of his condition, ALS, also known as motor neuron disease. Diagnosed at 22 while studying at Cambridge, he was initially told he would die within 2 years, but stunned doctors by living for more than 50 years before passing away in 2018 at age 76. His trademark wheelchairs and the communication equipment that gave Hawking his distinctive robotic voice sit alongside his landmark papers on theoretical physics and his scripts from his appearance on The Simpsons. His entire office is being preserved by the Science Museum. Hawking's own family made the decision to allow his possessions to become part of public collections.
Penyakit diabetes biasanya diawali dengan gejala-gejala yang khas, tapi ada juga yang tanpa gejala.
Saya Haris Fadilah, di usia 60 tahun. Di tahun 2002 saya tidak merasakan keluhan apapun, tetapi dokter mencurigai ada penyumbatan di jantung saya. Ada sumbatan 85% dan pasang ring di jantung saya.
Lalu apa yang dialami oleh Bapak Haris hingga jantungnya tersumbat 85% dan dipasangi ring? Go Healthy, Sabtu 29 Mei jam 6:30 pagi.
Lampu merah tanda berhenti, lampu kuning harap hati-hati, lampu hijau silakan jalan lagi, lampu nggak nyala traffic light-nya
itu kan tentang kedisiplinan kan?
Iya. Tapi kalau dia mencari tahu syairnya, liriknya, kemudian dia terjemahkan, baru dia kaget-kaget bahwa syairnya itu adalah sesuatu yang tidak pantas.
Kick Andy, selamatkan anak Indonesia. Minggu 30 Mei jam 7 malam. Vaksin untuk Indonesia. Setiap Jumat jam 8 malam.
You're back on World News. Post-Impressionist artist Vincent Van Gogh's masterpieces come to life in a breathtaking exhibit called Immersive Van Gogh at Pier 36, a 70,000 square foot facility located in Manhattan's Lower East Side. The exhibition provides history about Van Gogh, his life, and his art, while also putting guests in the middle of his work. It features mirror sculptures that reflect the artwork. Immersive Van Gogh toured in various cities around the world before arriving in New York, USA. The creative talents behind the show include creator Massimiliano Siccardi, creative director New York David Corkins, and composer Luca Longobardi. The exhibition uses technology to combine art and music in an immersive experience. As New York lifted most of its coronavirus capacity restrictions on businesses, Van Gogh was the perfect artist to usher visitors from the dark times of the pandemic into normalcy. And in our top entertainment news tonight, celebrity chef Gordon Ramsay says a new season of Uncharted let him show vulnerability in difficult times. Usher hosted and performed at the iHeart Music Awards, and Simon Baker plays the hero in a movie about indigenous tribes' high ground. And that's all for World News for tonight. I'm Sarah Wade. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful night and a wonderful weekend.
Come on, Gordon. Struggling to secure the net and pull our catch clear of some...
Gordon Ramsay comes back to the third season of Uncharted, showing more vulnerability than we've seen from him in the past. With the pandemic and the world changing, so has Ramsay. But that doesn't mean he's gotten any softer. Thank goodness for that. He believes that the National Geographic series helped viewers see the world opening up.
All this cursing and yelling from the boss.
The celebrity chef says the idea of putting himself at risk can be a good thing. Ramsay says the challenges in Uncharted as a good thing. Ramsay has a busy summer ahead of him with seasons of MasterChef and Hell's Kitchen. Love that show.
There's no time for a cup of coffee. You gotta move.
Gordon Ramsay Uncharted Season 3 is set to premiere on May 31st on National Geographic, with episodes available the next day on Disney+.
Nature doesn't always play ball, and sometimes you can wind up with nothing.
Me, I only wanted 12 sardines. And all that.
Let me hear it! Usher declared that live music is back at the beginning of Thursday's iHeartRadio Music Awards. The R&B star hosted and performed at the event, which held around 800 COVID-compliant audience members at the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles. Still kind of scary. Live performers included The Weeknd and Ariana Grande, who kicked off the show with their new duet, Save Your Tears. Dan and Shay, Silk Sonic, and Doja Cat also performed. Her, Brandy Carlisle, and Demi Lovato joined in a tribute to Elton John, who received the iHeartRadio Icon Award.
That's why I like doing a red.
Big winners of the night included The Weeknd, who took home Male Artist of the Year and Song of the Year for Blinding Lights. Dua Lipa won Female Artist of the Year, while Her was named R&B Artist of the Year.
So, thank you so much for that.
Like most movies due for release in 2020, High Ground was delayed due to the coronavirus pandemic. The film tells the story of World War I sniper-turned-policeman Travis, played by Simon Baker, who loses control of an operation that results in the massacre of an Aboriginal Australian tribe in 1919. After quitting his job over a cover-up, which I assure you doesn't happen very much, Travis returns to the area 12 years later to track down an Aboriginal warrior who is attacking white settlers. Baker, who also acted as an executive producer on the film, believes the subject matter of the movie would have resonated with the Black Lives Matter movement and says its delayed release is a missed opportunity. However, Baker is positive about the response to the movie when it screened in Australia. Directed by Stephen Johnson, High Ground is available on demand now.
Bad men like me and you, whatever made you think you could change who you are?
Metro TV.
Kenapa sih kita harus berinvestasi di PIK 2? Ada 3 alasan utama. Yang pertama, lokasi PIK 2. Alasan kedua, setiap orang yang membeli PIK 2 dianggap sebagai pemegang saham. Membeli produk PIK 2 memang selalu untung karena harga perdana PIK 2 50% di bawah harga market. Alasan yang ketiga, fasilitas. Di mana fasilitas yang tersedia di PIK 2 jauh lebih banyak dari real estate manapun juga.
Banyak nelayan tidak bisa melaut karena kondisi perahunya tidak layak pakai. Nelayan membutuhkan perahu yang berkualitas agar mereka bisa kembali produktif. Melalui program Susi Cek Ombak, saya Susi Pujiastuti mengajak Anda berdonasi melalui rekening Yayasan Benih Baik Indonesia, Nelayan Berseri Laut Lestari.
Metro TV hadir di mana peristiwa terjadi. Bekerja dengan identitas yang jelas. Dan mampu beradaptasi dengan teknologi terbaru. Agar Anda bisa mendapatkan informasi dengan segera. Jurnalis Metro TV berintegritas dan tidak menerima imbalan dalam bentuk apapun. Metro TV, knowledge to elevate.
Pemirsa, Metro TV menyelenggarakan pelatihan jurnalistik untuk tetaplah bersama kami di Breaking News Metro TV.
Dengarkan Metro TV di radio, more than just news. Streaming sekarang di metrotvnews.com dan medcom.id. Melihat Indonesia, tayang setiap minggu jam 8:30 pagi.
Indonesia tanah air beta, pusaka abadi nan jaya. Indonesia sejak dulu kala tetap dipuja-puja bangsa. Indonesia. Di hari tua sampai akhir menutup mata.
Metro TV, a part of Media Group News.
Inilah headline news pukul 00 waktu Indonesia Barat saat ketegangan dengan Rusia memanas. Ribuan pasukan NATO dengan beberapa kapal perang dan puluhan pesawat ikut serta dalam latihan militer yang membentang melintasi Atlantik melalui Eropa hingga ke wilayah Laut Hitam. Latihan perang tersebut diberi nama Steadfast Defender 21 ditujukan untuk mensimulasikan respons organisasi militer 30 negara terhadap serangan terhadap salah satu anggotanya. Dengan latihan ini akan menguji kemampuan NATO untuk mengerahkan pasukan dari Amerika dan menjaga jalur pasokan tetap terbuka. Sementara itu dalam beberapa tahun terakhir ini Amerika Serikat dan sekutunya telah mengerahkan pasukan dan peralatan di Estonia, Latvia, Lituania, dan Polandia untuk mencoba meyakinkan para anggota yang bertetangga dengan Rusia bahwa mitra mereka akan membantu jika mereka diserang. Namun petinggi NATO bersikeras bahwa latihan militer yang melibatkan sekitar 9.000 tentara dari 20 negara tidak ditujukan khusus untuk Rusia. Tetapi mereka berfokus pada wilayah Laut Hitam tempat Rusia dituduh memblokir navigasi kapal secara bebas. Sebagai tanda dukungan untuk Belarusia, otoritas Rusia menolak untuk mengizinkan dua maskapai yang berbasis di Uni Eropa mengubah rute mereka ke Moskow sehingga mereka dapat melewati wilayah udara Belarusia. Menurut salah satu perusahaan penerbangan, yakni penerbangan Austrian Airlines dari Wina dan penerbangan Air France dari Paris, keduanya harus dibatalkan untuk mengubah rute penerbangan mereka tanpa melewati Belarusia. Dengan adanya keputusan tersebut, Kepala Urusan Luar Negeri Uni Eropa, Josep Borrell, mengatakan dirinya tidak mengetahui adanya keputusan tersebut. Sementara itu, Borrell mengatakan saat dirinya melakukan pertemuan dengan Menteri Pertahanan Uni Eropa, tidak mengetahui apakah langkah Rusia tersebut untuk mengganggu lalu lintas udara umum atau hanya kasus individu. Demikianlah Headline News. Headline News akan kembali 1 jam mendatang.
Tegakah Anda mengkhianati cintanya dengan menjadi koruptor? Sayangi ibu, hindari korupsi. Menuju rehat malam bersama program-program berita Metro TV. Rangkuman berita pilihan hari ini di dalam negeri dan mancanegara.
Saya Iqbal Himawan akan menemani Anda dalam program Top News.
Laporan perkembangan terkini serta dari dunia olahraga.
Jumpa lagi di Metro Sport.
Selamat malam pemirsa Metro Malam kembali hadir menjumpai.
Kami dampingi Anda menutup hari, memastikan malam Anda terisi dengan informasi yang baik dan terkonfirmasi. Metro TV, knowledge to elevate.
Media Group News mempersembahkan televisi digital terestrial pertama dengan jangkauan nasional. Magna Channel. Temukan di saluran TV digital Anda.
Hello, good evening. You are watching Asia Prime on Metro Globe Network. I'm Sarah Wayne.
And I'm Ralph Tapubolon coming to you live from Jakarta, Indonesia. And over the next 60 minutes, we have top stories from all over the world. Malaysia hit by COVID cases boom. New COVID-19 cases climbed to nearly 8,000 on Thursday. Next Monday, Malaysia will open the nation's first mega vaccination center.
Indonesia released the 5G network. This high-speed data traffic is part of the Indonesian massive digital infrastructure development.
And the Indonesian People's Consultative Assembly, MPR, leaders visit Russia to seek further cooperation possibilities, including on vaccine. The Russian coronavirus vaccine Sputnik 5 is known for its high effectiveness in preventing symptomatic illness.
Syrian President Bashar Assad was re-elected in a landslide, ushering in a fourth 7-year term in the war-torn country following an election described as illegitimate and a sham by the West and his opposition.
Assad's win was not in doubt in an election where officials say 18 million were eligible to vote. But in the country ravaged by the 10-year-old conflict, areas controlled by rebels or Kurdish-led troops did not hold the vote. At least 8 million, mostly displaced, live in those areas in northwest and northeast Syria. Over 5 million refugees, mostly living in neighboring countries, have largely refrained from casting their ballots.
Syria's parliament speaker Hamoud Sabag announced the final results from Wednesday's vote. He said Assad garnered 95.1% of the votes. He was facing symbolic competition from two candidates, a foreign minister and a former opposition figure. Assad's victory comes as the country is still devastated by the conflict.
Hundreds of Palestinians lined up in Gaza City Thursday to receive aid donated by Egypt to the war-battered Gaza Strip.
Residents of Gaza, whose houses were damaged during the latest fighting, and families in need received rice and other food staples. The aid was distributed in white cardboard boxes decorated with Egyptian and Palestinian flags. The aid was brought in on a 130-truck convoy that crossed into Gaza at the Egyptian border in Rafah. The aid convoy, which began entering on Sunday, was the largest to enter the territory through Egypt in years.
Well, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken visited Egypt and Jordan on Wednesday to shore up the Gaza ceasefire between Israel and Hamas.
Antony Blinken's first trip to the Middle East as Secretary of State came just days after a fragile ceasefire in Gaza, where an Israeli offensive in response to deadly Hamas rocket attacks left scores dead and buildings in rubble. The focus of Blinken's talks this week with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, how the US can shore up the Egypt-brokered ceasefire and help rebuild Gaza.
We know that to prevent a return to violence, we have to use the space created to address a larger set of underlying issues and challenges. And that begins with tackling the grave humanitarian situation in Gaza and starting to rebuild.
The US commitment to rehabilitate Gaza raises the question of how to get aid into civilians without it going to Hamas, the US-designated terror group that controls the Palestinian territory.
We'll work with our partners, closely with all, to ensure that Hamas does not benefit from the reconstruction assistance.
US officials suggest involving the United Nations and the Palestinian Authority to circumvent Hamas. Some Israeli observers are sceptical. Pincus says that before the latest hostilities, Qatar was sending $30 million a month in cash into Gaza via an Israeli border crossing. Israeli defense officials are calling for that to end. During his trip, Blinken said he would request $75 million from Congress for economic assistance to the Palestinian people. The Palestinian Authority greeted this pledge as a welcome start at rebuilding relations. These reached a historic low under the Trump administration, which moved the US Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem and cut funding to UN agencies supporting Palestinians. On the Israeli side, the latest hostilities in Gaza are prompting a reassessment of Israel's policy towards Hamas. As the US tries to reset relations with the Palestinian leadership, Secretary Blinken continues his efforts to turn a shaky Gaza ceasefire into a more stable truce. Iris Makler for VOA News, Jerusalem.
Moving on to Hong Kong, media tycoon Jimmy Lai faces sentencing on Thursday over his participation in Hong Kong's pro-democracy protests in 2019.
Lai, who founded the Apple Daily newspaper, faced 3 charges over his involvement in the demonstrations. Thursday's sentencing was in relation to his alleged role in an unauthorized assembly in October 2019. It came as Hong Kong's legislature passed a bill amending electoral laws that drastically reduces public's ability to vote and increases the number of pro-Beijing lawmakers making decisions for the city.
The protests in 2019 were driven by anger over a now withdrawn extradition bill that would have allowed people in Hong Kong to be extradited to mainland China for trial. A new national security law imposed by China is now widely seen as aimed at tightening control over Hong Kong. Meanwhile, a wildfire has destroyed several homes and forced evacuations in the small central Arizona mining community of Baghdad.
Arizona forestry officials say the fire is fueled by dry grass and brush. ABC 15 reports the helicopter crew counted at least 15 homes that were on fire or heavily damaged. The Baghdad Fire Department said the entire town was evacuated. Italian police arrested 22 people Wednesday who they believe were part of criminal groups that specialized in breaking into cash machines with an excavator.
A police statement accused the 3 criminal groups of carrying out the heist, which involved using stolen excavators to remove the machines before they were loaded onto stolen trucks and driven away. Detectives first investigated the string of robberies when a bank in Marsala on the island of Sicily had its cash machine stolen on July 2019.
Police officers believe the 3 criminal groups were responsible for 5 robberies between July 2019 and February 2020. The suspects have been charged with criminal conspiracy, aggravated theft, and other theft offenses.
Stay with us on Asia Prime. We'll be right back after the break with more news and information.
Selain olahraga ya, jangan lupa nutrisi. Ya, Mbak ya, nutrisi kita harus pastikan cukup protein, kemudian linoleat ya, itu juga penting buat lansia terutama.
Metro Eye Care, sehat dan produktif di usia senja, Minggu 30 Mei jam 10 pagi.
Aktif sepanjang hari, aku minum Entrasol. Ekstrak buah zaitunnya bantu tangkal radikal bebas.
Tinggi proteinnya bantu jaga massa otot saya.
Mereka minum Entrasol. Bagaimana dengan Anda? Entrasol.
Banyak nelayan tidak bisa melaut karena kondisi perahunya tidak layak pakai. Nelayan membutuhkan perahu yang berkualitas agar mereka bisa kembali produktif. Melalui program Susi Cek Ombak, saya Susi Pujiastuti mengajak Anda berdonasi melalui rekening Yayasan Benih Baik Indonesia, Nelayan Berseri Laut Lestari.
Salah satu cara mencegah penyebaran virus corona adalah dengan menggunakan masker.
Berikut adalah cara menggunakan masker yang baik dan benar.
Cuci tangan terlebih dahulu sebelum memakai masker. Masker tidak boleh longgar. Tutupi batang hidung hingga dagu.
Ingat, sebelum makan atau minum, lepaskan masker dan letakkan masker di tempat yang bersih.
Virus corona berbahaya. Lindungi diri, keluarga, dan sesama dengan semua pakai masker.
Pertama kali mendengar hadis ini saya banyak pertanyaan gitu. Apa sih yang dimaksud penjara bagi orang mukmin?
Bagi orang-orang yang menikmati keimanan, sudah mencapai tingkat ma'rifah lebih tinggi, dia akan merasakan dunia ini sudah bukan penjara lagi.
Penjara buat orang beriman, surga buat orang kafir, tapi bukan berarti tersesat. Ingat, qad aflahal mu'min.
Khasanah Islam, penjara dunia. Minggu 30 Mei jam 2 siang.
You're watching Asia Prime. Malaysia is hit by COVID cases boom.
New COVID-19 cases climbed to nearly 8,000 on Thursday. And on next Monday, Malaysia will open the nation's first mega vaccination center.
Malaysia Health Director General Nur Hisham Abdullah reported 7,857 new infections. This is a new daily record that pushed the country's total cases to more than 500,000. It marked the third straight day where daily cases soared above 7,000. Total deaths have also spiked beyond 2,300. The Health Ministry issued a poster on social media earlier this day calling for medical officers, dentists, nurses, and technicians, among others, to volunteer their services in the fight to contain the pandemic. While volunteers will not be paid, Nur Hisham tweeted that they are sorely needed to alleviate the burden of health workers nationwide. Malaysia's daily cases have accelerated after the Muslim Eid festival despite a one-month near lockdown until June 7, and officials warned the further spikes. The country has tightened movement restrictions and beefed up its vaccination program. On Monday, the biggest vaccination center will be opened in Malaysia International Trade and Exhibition Center. Priority will be given to some 2,600 senior citizens. The location is expected to see over 5,000 people vaccinated daily. The government said it will make improvements to the registration system so that the goal of achieving group or herd immunity before the end of the year succeeds. In July, Malaysia will receive nearly 16,000 more COVID-19 vaccine doses, so hopefully the vaccination rate is expected to increase to 150,000 injections a day by next month.
And to know more about the latest update in Malaysia, we have Nadia Musin live from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
Well, Nadia, it's been 4 consecutive days, daily cases soared above 7,000. What is the reason and what is the biggest cluster reported?
Well, today we recorded another high. We recorded another high cases with 8,200. Well, I think it is obvious, and we can say that Hari Raya Idul Fitri cluster were among the main contribution to the rising number of COVID-19 positive cases. Well, although the government has imposed several restrictions prior to Hari Raya celebration, it seems like the rule has been violated. Somehow, people had to find a way to go back to their hometown and to do this, to go back to their hometown, mudik, and it was reported a rising number of positive cases in several states caused by city folks who made trip to their hometown during that period. Well, 12 community clusters in 7 states were detected. A total of 2,541 people were tested, with 470 confirmed positive. Of these cases, there was one fatality in Selangor, and beside that, clusters at workplaces or offices also contributed to the surge of cases. Well, currently there are almost 600 active clusters in Malaysia, when a total of 233 clusters are directly linked to workplaces, involving around more than 16,600 active COVID-19 cases altogether.
Okay, Nadia.
So the situation is...
Okay, Nadia, seeing the rising numbers that is happening there and the restrictions that has been imposed and which has been violated by the people in Malaysia, how is the government responding?
Well, based on today's cases, the government said they were aware of the current situation with the spike numbers of cases, and the senior minister, Dr. Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob, just now in his Facebook posting stated that he will bring the matter to the PM, although he did not mention anything about a total lockdown. Well, health authorities have repeatedly urged members of the public to carry out a self-lockdown and only leave their houses for essential activities. Well, last week, the government, like I mentioned before, the government has imposed a stricter rule under the MCO 3.0, but it does not involve the full lockdown, similar to the one that we had imposed last year, simply because of the economic situation. But look at the numbers today. We have exceeded 8,000 cases. Well, however, the state government of Sarawak in Borneo decided to implement a full lockdown following the rising case in the state itself, which recorded almost 700 cases today. So this was decided by the state governments, not the federal government. So it only involved Sarawak state alone. So the health minister also called, like you said, for the medical professional to volunteers in this. And the rate of ICU usage of COVID-19 cases has already exceeded capacity at 113%. I mean, among the steps that have been taken include to synchronize management of critical beds in the COVID-19 hospitals in the Klang Valley, to ensure a greater efficiency and to facilitate the increasing need. And other steps include, elective surgeries and procedures have been reduced and postponed in a Klang Valley hospital, and this hope will free more bed for the treatment of COVID-19 and also enable medical personnel to mobilize to more critical area, and the ordinary ward also have been repurposed for critical beds to accommodate the increased need. Day by day is increasing and terrifying. Really.
Talk about vaccinations. Critics are focused on our online vaccination program. There has been very bad. Why is that? What went wrong? And are there any plans for additional vaccines to arrive anytime soon?
Yeah. What went wrong? I can say everything went wrong for us. Well, on this registration issue, this was during the registration for the second round of the opt-in AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine program. So the registration, this is the second round. So I registered for the first round. The first round went okay, went smooth, without any hiccups. Maybe during that first round, people didn't pay much attention, of the AZ vaccine. at that time. Maybe they just want to wait and see other people to take, and they just want to see the side effect of it. And some of them just got no confidence on this particular vaccine. But as the cases increases, fear is rising. Majority of the people still didn't get their vaccine yet, and they've been waiting for months. So I guess, this is when everybody rush to register and the system crash. So when the government opened the registration, the feedback was overwhelmed. So earlier reported that all the slots were taken up in less than 90 minutes after the registration opened. Well, it started like delay in the registration. It started at 12:15. It's supposed to start at 12, and the whole process met with frustration and anger among applicants who could not access some features available on the registration site. So much for a 70 million ringgit website. Well, following the incident, the government said action will be taken against quarters responsible for causing these technical problems during the registration, which resulting in difficulties among applicants. However, some of the applicants who could not complete their registration on that particular day will somehow manage to book their slot and only to be notified a day after. Well, for your information, the opt-in AZ vaccination program will no longer be available. Other who doesn't secure the slot will now get vaccinated under the National COVID-19 Immunization Program. So the government announced that the supply of the vaccine will increase in the coming month with an additional 12.8 million doses from Pfizer and BioNTech. So this will bring a total amount of 44.8 million. So it's enough to cover 70% of Malaysian population. But at the moment, just under 3% Malaysia is fully vaccinated, though the government aimed to achieve herd immunity by the end of this year. So the government targeted to achieve 150,000 jabs daily in June. So let's just hope that the program will roll out efficiently and according to plan without any delay or double standard treatment.
All right, as we closely monitor the situation in the coming days. Nadia, thank you. Stay safe. Nadia Mohsen reporting live from Kuala Lumpur, KL, Malaysia. Moving on from Malaysia to Taiwan, where it faces its largest outbreak since the beginning of the pandemic. When confirmed cases rose, testing became its biggest roadblock as labs struggled to process all samples coming in from potential patients. The cluster of infections from the pilots had spread to employees at a quarantine hotel and their family members. Then the number of confirmed cases started to climb up by the second week of this month, and the island is now counting roughly 300 cases per day and almost 5,000 cases in total. It had primarily relied on genetic or PCR tests that are seen as the gold standard for diagnosis throughout. The result was overworked lab technicians, backlogs in testing, and a scramble to set up testing sites. Last Saturday, Health Minister Chen Shih-chung announced the adjustment of 400 cases to the number of confirmed cases from the prior week, reflecting a backlog in tests. The backlog is being driven large part due to a lack of manpower on the front lines and in the labs, and not enough PCR machines in the labs. Taiwan was praised globally for its success in keeping the coronavirus out, but now it faces its largest outbreak since the beginning of the pandemic.
The city that was once Australia's worst COVID-19 hotspot on Thursday announced a 7-day lockdown, its fourth since the pandemic began. The Victoria's statewide lockdown, which begins at midnight, comes after a traveler from India became infected early this month with a highly contagious Indian variant of COVID-19 while in hotel quarantine in South Australia state. The traveler was not diagnosed until he returned home to the Victoria capital, Melbourne. By Thursday, the number of cases in the Melbourne cluster had risen to 26, including a person who was in hospital intensive care, Victoria Acting Premier James Merlino said. Australia's second largest city last year underwent a second wave of infections that peaked at 725 new cases in a single August day at a time when community spread had been virtually eliminated elsewhere in Australia. That lockdown lasted for 111 days. A third lockdown that lasted for 5 days in February was triggered by a cluster of 13 cases linked to hotel quarantine near Melbourne Airport. Victoria accounts for 820 of Australia's 910 coronavirus deaths.
And still more stories coming to you ahead. Stay with us here on Asia Prime. You're watching Metro Globe Network.
Tim ekspedisi Karstens Polwan 2017 bersama Journey kembali memperlihatkan persiapan pendakian di bentang alam Papua. Mari ikuti prosesnya dan melihat salju abadi yang menjadi harta karun negeri Katulistiwa. Kita tak hanya akan terpikat oleh alam, kearifan lokal dan festival adat juga siap memesona.
Selamat datang di Papua!
Inilah perjalanan Minanti Rohanta dan Marsalina Gita dalam Journey di Atap Negeri. Besok jam 10 pagi.
Saat ini obat ampuh untuk melawan virus corona belum ada.
Saya ingin agar protokol kesehatan, perubahan perilaku di masyarakat menjadi perhatian kita. Kita fokus kampanye pakai masker.
Semua wajib pakai masker di media group. Disiplin memakai masker tidak hanya untuk melindungi diri dan sesama, tapi juga untuk menjaga Indonesia kita.
Suku Kubu atau suku anak dalam yang dikenal dengan sebutan orang rimba mulai beradaptasi dengan keadaan baru. Anak-anak mulai bersekolah demi harapan yang lebih baik, tanpa menghilangkan tradisi dan kearifan lokal yang diwariskan turun-temurun.
Dunia kita ini sudah jembar, bukan seperti dulu. Sekarang dunia kita berputar, rimba habis, orang banyak.
Melihat Indonesia, suku terakhir, Minggu 30 Mei jam 8:30 pagi.
Indonesia has released the 5G network. This high-speed data traffic is part of Indonesia's massive digital infrastructure development.
Indonesian Jarum Foundation athletes performed well in the Slovenian International Championship. 2 titles, taking home 2 categories, women's single and men's double.
And U.S. President Joe Biden took some time out from touting his infrastructure proposal for some ice cream in Ohio.
No, I got mine. It looks awful good.
We begin with the situation in Myanmar, where photos and videos shared on social media exposed a brutal crackdown carried out by the junta since the military's February takeover of the Southeast Asian nation. Amnesty International's Deputy Regional Director for Research, Emeraldine Hill, says journalists are at the front line of the struggle to expose the truth as to what is really happening in Myanmar. The brazen violence, intimidation, and harassment the military authorities leveled at them only illustrates how powerful exposing the truth can be. Individual journalists can be threatened, arrested, or even meet a worse fate, but Myanmar's free media as a whole can never be silenced. According to the most recent figures from the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners of Burma, as of May 21st, 88 journalists have been arrested since the February 1st coup. More than half remain in detention and 33 are in hiding. Dozens have fled the country or sought refuge in territories controlled by ethnic armed organizations. 2 journalists have been injured by gunshots while covering protests. Amnesty International says Myanmar military authorities should immediately drop the charges against journalists.
And joining Asia Prime tonight is the Amnesty International's Emeraldine Hill, Deputy for Research of Amnesty International. Good
Emerald,
evening.
thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time. Now, we received Amnesty International's written statement today concerning the violence that recently happened in Myanmar by the junta, including journalists. So tell us what is actually happening.
It's a very terrible situation now in Myanmar, Ralph and Sarah. What we are seeing is widespread repression of people who are critical of the Myanmar military. You have seen in the past that the military has used battlefield weaponry to kill and injure hundreds of civilian protesters, and thousands have been arrested. Journalists are being attacked and arrested solely for the work of reporting truthfully on the situation in Myanmar. Many of them have been shot at or detained simply for doing their job. So it's a general silencing of anything that would appear critical to the Myanmar military.
All right, Emerlyn, and according to the data that has been gathered by Amnesty International, how many casualties are there, or how many of those are affected by the situation?
According to the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners of Burma, there have been at least more than 800 people who have died in the hands of the military since the coup, and thousands have been arrested. But these are not the real figures of people who are impacted in Myanmar right now. Because of the violence and the escalation of violence, Ralph and Sarah, millions will be affected. The violence impacts the fuel prices and the food prices. Fuel prices go up, therefore food prices will be very expensive. And the Myanmar right now is facing a food shortage or food insecurity, and many millions will be hungry in the next few months.
Now, the Amnesty International says the Myanmar military authorities should immediately drop the charges against journalists. What about the possibilities, or anticipating the possibilities, that the authorities there will not comply with such requests?
We will keep on continuing this call, and we'll also be pressuring and working with other stakeholders who will send similar messages to the Myanmar military. It is important for the Myanmar military to know and be aware that the international community is watching. They cannot just arrest, imprison people simply for reporting the truth or speaking the truth or speaking critically about their actions.
Emerlyn, and can you also tell us more about the condition of the people of the residents there who are now seeking refuge? How are their conditions, and where are they finding safety in such time of violence?
It is a general situation of fear right now. Anyone who simply wants to take a picture of what is happening on the streets may be punished or arrested. In fact, we have been receiving reports that people are very cautious now to speak to journalists or to anyone or be photographed, since they could be identified as speaking against the military and punished by the military.
And what do you expect the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, to respond or to assist in this matter?
The ASEAN has come up with a 5-point consensus during its last emergency summit on Myanmar. What we are concerned about is that this 5-point consensus has no timeline for implementation, and it does not look likely that it has the full force of ASEAN behind it. Right now, there isn't any ASEAN special envoy to Myanmar appointed yet, and we really want someone to be there to be able to look at the situation, to have more focus on the situation. The member states of the ASEAN, there hasn't been really strong voices in terms of releasing political prisoners in Myanmar right now. And we would like to push them to do that, because this is very important.
Okay, thank you for sharing us the latest from Myanmar. Emerlyn, thank you. Amnesty International's Deputy Regional Director for Research, Emerlyn Hill. live here on Asia Prime. Moving on to other stories, the Indonesian People's Consultative Assembly MPR leaders visit Russia to seek further cooperation possibilities, including on vaccines. The Russian coronavirus vaccine Sputnik V is known for its high effectiveness in preventing symptomatic illness. The Indonesian People's Consultative Assembly MPR leaders visit Russia to seek further cooperation possibilities, including on vaccine. Russian-made COVID-19 vaccine Sputnik V was proven through a large clinical trial for its more than 90% effectiveness in preventing symptomatic illnesses. Indonesian ambassador to Russia, Jose Tavares, says leaders of the assembly have met a number of Russian officials during the visit, where they discussed numerous issues such as economics, technology, and pharmaceutics. The ambassador says all meetings are aimed to improve better understanding between the two countries.
Juga menyangkut soal vaksin, selain Indonesia juga berkepentingan untuk memperoleh vaksin Sputnik V yang terbukti efikasinya sangat tinggi di atas 90%. Juga diupayakan dan dibahas juga kerjasama ke depan dalam hal pharmaceutical industries yang menyangkut bisa kedepannya bisa joint production ataukah mengembangkan obat-obatan lain ke depan.
The COVID-19 task force in Jambi province, Indonesia, continues urging people to get vaccination by using door-to-door endorsements, and rickshaw pickup service is also available to bring senior citizens to the vaccination center. Senior citizens were picked up from their homes to the nearest vaccination centers to get vaccine jabs in Jambi. Local COVID-19 task forces officials educate all villagers on the importance of preventing the coronavirus spread by having a vaccine shot. It is becoming a daily routine for local police officers who join the local task force to inform people to not believe hoaxes and the fake news about the vaccination process. In a single day, they can bring 50 elderlies back and forth for vaccination. The Indonesian government created local-scale task forces to boost the vaccination process in this country of more than 270 million people.
In commemoration of World Thalassemia Day, a hospital in Batang Regency, Central Java, presented superhero figures to attract people's awareness about thalassemia patients. The inherited blood disorder is still underestimated by many. Thalassemia is an inherited blood disorder where a patient has less hemoglobin than the normal amount needed and fewer red blood cells than normal. Superhero figures were used as icons for the socialization. This is done by conducting blood checks on a regular basis. There's no medication available yet for the disease, so parents are expected to have regular consultations and periodic blood transfusions.
Indonesian Jarum Foundation athletes performed well in Slovenian International Championship. 2 champion titles is taken home by 2 categories, with women's single and the men's double. Indonesia's women's single, Mutiara Ayu Puspitasari, wins over Hungarian senior player Agnes Korosi in 3 games, and the final score of 21-14, 19-21, and 21-16. And from the men's double category, Indonesian M. Putra Erwiansyah and Pater Harapan win over Danish player William Krieger and Christian Foss Kjær with final scores of 21-13 and 21-13.
And Money Matters, business news, coming up right here on Asia Prime. Stay with us on Metro Globe Network.
Berita Metro TV hadir sepanjang hari. Suguhan paling hangat menemani Anda membuka pagi.
Halo, selamat pagi pemirsa, Anda kembali menyaksikan Metro Pagi Prime Time.
Menaati protokol kesehatan dalam melaporkan informasi. Tak hanya untuk saling menjaga antara kami, tapi juga sebagai pengingat Anda sebelum memulai ragam aktivitas dalam sehari. Metro TV, knowledge to elevate. Disiplin pakai masker. Hindari risiko sangat tinggi penularan COVID-19 saat tidak memakai masker. Risiko penularan tinggi saat orang sakit tanpa masker berinteraksi dengan orang sehat dengan masker. Risiko penularan sedang jika orang sakit yang memakai masker berinteraksi dengan orang sehat tanpa masker. Dan risiko rendah saat keduanya memakai masker. Memakai masker dapat menurunkan risiko terinfeksi virus corona. Ayo pakai masker sekarang.
Bincang-bincang seputar dunia kreatif, ide, dan inspirasi pekerja kreatif, baik dari Indonesia maupun Amerika. Kami suguhkan spesial untuk Anda.
Ketemu lagi dengan saya Naratama di sini. Program ini kita akan mengupas berbagai macam cerita di balik layar.
Creative Talk, setiap hari Senin dan Selasa, mulai 15 Februari, jam 6:30 malam. Hanya di Magna Channel.
Fluid kick-off berbunyi, berita sepak bola paling panas sepekan terakhir segera dimulai. Ya, terjadi head-to-head di antara narasumber. Otak-atik obrolan membuat suasana semakin seru. Dan terjadi offside, saudara-saudara. Kita review dulu video dan info yang sedang viral. Tendangan baru saja dilakukan. Umpan closing. Ya, dan gol! Berita terlengkap seputar sepak bola dalam dan luar negeri dalam 30 menit. Soccer Time. Setiap Jumat jam 10 malam.
You're still watching Asia Prime on Metro Globe Network. Indonesia's central bank plans to issue digital currency or CBDC. Bank Indonesia Governor Peri Warjio says Indonesia's central bank plans to issue the rupiah digital currency known as CBDC. However, before issuing the digital currency, Bank Indonesia must first draft the flow of rupiah digital currency circulation, as it has always been regulated with paper money. The central bank still needs to consider a few matters before actually issuing the rupiah digital currency, such as whether the CBDC can support the country's monetary policy, the payment system for the finances sector, and foreign exchange. Bank Indonesia also needs to examine the readiness of digital currency infrastructure and technology platforms. Peri did not mention the time frame for issuing the digital currency.
An Indonesian cellular operator, Telkomsel, has launched 5G prime internet network services in Indonesia on Thursday. Telkomsel became the first internet operator in Indonesia releasing the 5G network.
Telkomsel officially launched the primary 5G internet network service constantly throughout Indonesia on May 27. The launch was attended by Telkomsel President Commissioner Wisnu Utama, Minister of Communication and Informatics Johnny G. Plate, and the virtual presence of State-Owned Enterprises Minister Erick Thohir. Minister of Communication and Informatics Johnny G. Plate said the presence of Telkomsel 5G network and services support the minister's effort in developing the national digital fundamental more structured and massive. That is to enhance the acceleration of digital transformation in three aspects: society, government, and the business community.
Pemanfaatan teknologi 5G memberikan efisiensi bagi pelanggan. Nah, efisiensi bagi pelanggan ini tidak saja secara komersial, tapi secara teknologi karena kecepatannya. Manfaatnya itu begitu banyak. Tadi sudah digambarkan juga gaming, virtual reality, ya, dan lain sebagainya yang bisa digunakan. Itu dari human to human communication, human to machine communication, dan lagi untuk industri, machine to machine communication. Ya, nah tadi kan sudah tergambarkan harganya jauh lebih efisien. Tapi harus diingat ya, investasi 5G pasti jauh lebih besar untuk infrastruktur dibandingkan 4G.
Minister of the State-Owned Enterprises Erick Thohir declared the presence of Telkomsel 5G network will be a game changer for digital transformation in Indonesia. At this stage, Telkomsel's 5G network is available only in 9 cities across Indonesia: Medan, Batam, Bandung, Jakarta, Surakarta, Surabaya, Denpasar, Balikpapan, and Makassar. This network is installed in areas that are public's point interest. 5G network is the 5th generation telecommunication network which offers higher speed than 4G network. This network promises better download and upload experiences for customers. Alivia Anandita for Metro Globe Networks.
From 5G to double VG, as in Vincent van Gogh, the post-impressionist artist's masterpieces come to life in a breathtaking exhibit called Immersive Van Gogh, taking place at Pier 36, a 70,000 square foot facility located in Manhattan's Lower East Side. The exhibition provides history about Van Gogh, his life, and his art, while also putting guests in the middle of his work. It features mirrored sculptures that reflect the artwork. Immersive Van Gogh toured in various cities around the globe before arriving in New York. The creative talents behind the show include creator Massimiliano Sicardi, creative director New York David Corrins, and composer Luca Longobardi. The exhibition uses technology to combine art and music in an immersive experience. As New York lifted most of its coronavirus capacity restrictions on businesses, Van Gogh was the perfect artist to usher visitors from the dark times of the pandemic into some sense of normalcy.
Israel's top diplomat to the United Arab Emirates attended a ceremony in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, on the grounds of the Arabian Peninsula's first permanent exhibition to commemorate the Holocaust. Hours earlier, Ambassador Eitan Naeh had attended an event establishing a joint venture between an Israeli and Emirati company. The receptions on Wednesday were the clearest indication since a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip came into effect last week that the devastating 11-day war between Hamas and Israel and the violence that gripped Jerusalem and Al-Aqsa Mosque in the days preceding it have had no visible impact on the UAE's commitment to establishing deep ties with Israel. At least 254 Palestinians were killed, including 66 children, in the Gaza Strip during the war. Over 1,000 people were wounded, according to Gaza's health ministry, which does not differentiate between fighters and civilians. The UAE government and its top officials publicly expressed concern over the violence in East Jerusalem and condemned the storming of Al-Aqsa Mosque compound by Israeli security forces, as well as Jewish settler efforts to evict Palestinian families from their homes in the city's Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood. It signaled a rare rebuke of Israel by the UAE since the two countries agreed to normalize relations last year.
The world's leading museum of art and design is hosting UK's biggest exhibition, Iranian Art, Design and Heritage, in nearly a century epic Iran. The Victoria and Albert's exhibition showcasing 5,000 years of Iranian art, design and culture opens at a major London museum. Epic Iran presents 5,000 years of Iranian art, design and culture from 3000 BC to present day. It was originally scheduled to open at the V&A February 13th, but was postponed because of the coronavirus epidemic. The objects that were due to travel from Iran were mostly artifacts from 3000 BC that had been newly discovered in eastern Iran and that would have enriched the exhibition's opening section. The V&A is the world's largest museum of applied and decorative arts and design, as well as sculpture. It houses a permanent collection of more than 2.3 million objects, spanning more than 5,000 years of human creativity. Founded in 1852 and named after Queen Victoria and her husband Prince Albert, the museum has been collecting the art of Iran since its founding and has one of the world's leading collections of Iranian art from the medieval and modern periods.
And Disney's iconic honey-loving character, Winnie the Pooh, will travel from the 100-acre wood to off-Broadway this coming fall. Winnie the Pooh, the new musical adaptation, will bring together Pooh with his friends, Christopher Robin, Eeyore, Tigger, and the gang in a new production developed by Jonathan Rockefeller. The show will feature songs by the Grammy-winning Sherman Brothers with additional music from A.A. Mao and will be told using life-size puppetry. Richard and Robert Sherman have written music for Disney classics Mary Poppins, The Jungle Book, and The Aristocats. Winnie the Pooh, the new musical adaptation, opens October 21st at Times Square's Theater Row.
And still more stories ahead. You're watching Asia Prime on Metro Globe Network. Stay with us.
Nikmati Metro TV HD di saluran digital Anda.
Ayo semuanya, dukung migrasi TV digital. Bersih gambarnya, jernih suaranya, dan canggih teknologinya.
Warnai hari-hari Anda dengan nuansa tayangan kami yang inspiratif,
There is something beautiful in difference.
atraktif,
Orders ready.
penuh ide-ide kreatif,
Oh, that's so cool.
dan yang bakal bikin suasana makin rileks. Semuanya bisa dinikmati di Magna Channel melalui TV digital Anda.
Tiny home building is a big business.
The architecture is modern and the landscape is very minimalist.
So, you think you're an amazing cook.
My dream is to become a professional chef.
Mau tahu resep rahasia keluarga selebriti?
Ada rasa wanginya juga.
Mau jadi koki
When I was
andalan
about
di
20
rumah?
years old, I spent several months traveling through India. We naturally would be eating Indian food. Cooking is just not a vocation, it's a calling.
Mau cari inspirasi interior?
1, 2, 3. And if you want to live tiny,
Less house, more fun.
This is so fun.
It's so cute.
It's so amazing!
Oh, that's so cool.
Atau ada niatan renovasi rumah?
All love to create our dream home. The dream becomes reality.
Wow. Dapetin semua inspirasinya di Mola Hour. Senin sampai Jumat, mulai jam 4 hingga jam 6 sore. Hanya di Magna Channel.
You're watching Asia Prime on Metro Globe Network. U.S. President Joe Biden took some time out from touting his infrastructure proposal for some ice cream in the state of Ohio.
After speaking at Cuyahoga Community College in Cleveland, Biden stopped at the Honey Hut ice cream stand. The president ordered chocolate chip ice cream cone for himself and honey pecan for a supporter nearby. While talking with supporters, Biden was asked about the lack of support for Republicans for a January 6th commission to investigate the Capitol riot. Senate Republicans on Thursday were ready to deploy the filibuster to block the commission, shattering chances for a bipartisan probe of the deadly assault.
The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge attended a beading retreat ceremony in Edinburgh on Thursday on their last day of their tour to Scotland.
A beading retreat is a historic military ceremony. The bass pipes and drums of the combined cadet force in Scotland, joined by local school dancers who took part in a traditional jig performed for the royals at the Palace of Holyrood House. Members of local charities and schools were also invited. Mila Snedden, a 5-year-old leukemia patient whom the Duchess has forged a relationship with through her Hold Still photo project, was also a guest at the event along with her family. The Duke and Duchess spoke to some of the cadets and guests after the event.
Meanwhile, Oprah Winfrey and Prince Harry are continuing their mental health series with a virtual town hall featuring Lady Gaga, actress Glenn Close, and others.
Apple TV announced Wednesday that it will release on Friday The Me You Can't See, A Path Forward. The free town hall arrives a week after the mental health series co-created by Winfrey and the Duke of Sussex, The Me You Can't See, was released on the streaming platform. The series features a mix of stories of celebrities and everyday people and their mental health struggles and breakthroughs. In one episode, Gaga revealed the trauma of a rape she said left her pregnant at the age of 19. Harry discussed his own anxiety, therapy, and coping techniques for the series, which debuted last week. The Duke and his wife Meghan are living in California while they are waiting for the birth of their second child.
Other notable participants in the series include NBA basketball players DeMar DeRozan and Langston Galloway, boxer Virginia Jeannie Fox, and celebrity chef Rashad Armstead. That was good. Can't wait to see that.
And I can't wait to get another cone of ice cream just like President Biden upcoming for the weekend.
Well, the story about something called the me you can't see is ending this thing we call the thing that you can see us, and you can see us again on Monday right here on Asia Prime. I'm Ralph Tabuwalan.
And I'm Sarah Wayne. Thank you for joining us and have a good night.
Metro TV. Editorial Media Indonesia. Opini surat kabar terpercaya hadir di pagi hari Anda. Membahas isu secara tajam dan mengulas peristiwa dengan lebih mendalam. Tampil matang dengan dialog interaktif. Mengajak Indonesia menyikapi permasalahan bangsa dengan terukur dan cerdas. Editorial Media Indonesia, Senin sampai Sabtu, live jam 7:30 pagi.